Costa Rica is a beautiful, beautiful place. Matter of fact, I think it's paradise. However, no matter where you live at, there are going to be some disadvantages. But if you know those disadvantages and you can be prepared for them, you can continue to live in paradise.
Welcome back to another day in paradise.
It is a beautiful day in paradise. And today we are going to be talking about the top disadvantages of living in Costa Rica. Now, shortly, we're going to do another video talking about the disadvantages of visiting Costa Rica. Two totally different topics. And while we have been here since 2013, we've traveled all over Costa Rica. We have seen a lot of stuff. We're in the process of getting our residency, which means we have to stamp out every 90 days, which is a headache, but a whole nother topic that we'll talk about as far as how do you get your residency? What's the process of stamping out? Because it's important you know that when you come here, you're not just going to unpack your bags and relax.
Right.
There are things you need to know. But by knowing this disadvantages, you'll be equipped and prepared, because no matter where you live in the world, there are some disadvantages, right?
Right.
So it's important that you are ready, and that's what we're talking about. But before we go there, I want to remind you, make sure that you attend every Thursday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we can respond to you live. In other words, while you're watching that video premiere live, there is a section on the right where you can comment. However, we want to encourage you not to comment there and to comment below the video, because the comments on the right, they disappear as soon as the video stops, and we want your questions and the answers we give you to live there always and to help as many people that come. So if you attend live, we can answer your questions because we're on the other side answering your questions as quickly as they come in. Rebecca's on her computer, I'm on mine, and we're answering questions for as long as people are active on there, okay? So be sure to attend live Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. With that said, let's go into our top disadvantage, number one being
Crime. Is Costa Rica safe?
crime. So, for the most part, I feel like it's pretty safe. However,
Well, why are all the bars on the windows?
well, you know, crime, for the most part, it is fairly safe. I feel it's safe. However, the biggest thing that we run into is petty theft. It's opportunity crime. So, as far as crime goes, I don't think you ever have to worry about getting held up by gunpoint. Has it happened? Sure. Is it rare? Very rare, okay?
It happens mostly in the city,
It's
certain areas, the Limon area on the Caribbean side. We've mostly lived in rural areas and outside of the city, so we haven't really had to deal with that kind of issue.
that type of crime, right? I mean, no matter where you go in the world, there's going to be bad places, okay? However, in Costa Rica, it's very, very difficult to get a gun, okay, or be allowed to have a gun. So most people are poor. They're not going to have a gun. Does that mean they wouldn't maybe threaten you with a knife? It's possible. However, the important thing to know is that the crime, it's petty theft. That's the reason that you're going to see bars on all the windows. It makes it difficult for them to go in, and, you know, very rarely do I ever hear anyone has been, you know, had their house broken into and they stole their stuff. Now, while we're on that topic, if you are here and let's say that you're going to go home for a couple of weeks or even a week, a month for vacation, it's very important because of that particular petty theft. You need to have someone that's going to watch your house. House sit your house. House sitting is a big thing. And that's because, you know, if you leave your house abandoned, they know you're gone, and you open up a door for them to try to break into your house and steal whatever's there. All in all, petty theft, that's the issue. You left your shoes, your hiking boots, you left something on the back porch, and they came by night and took it. And it's easy money. They went and sold it. Okay? Areas, right? Certain areas have more crime than others. The Caribbean side, the crime rate on the Caribbean side is a lot worse than the crime rate on the Pacific side, okay? The culture is totally different there. So it's important that you know that.
We've had our propane tank stolen several times.
That's right. And she's had to tell me, I don't know how many times, and I think finally when my propane tank was taken on the 5th time, I finally agreed with her to chain it down. So, you know, every house that has a propane tank, and they're cooking with propane. Filling up the tank is only about 10 or 12 bucks, but they're taking the tank because when you get a tank for the first time, the deposit is like 70 bucks. It's expensive. So people take the tank, okay, and they can sell it to somebody. Maybe they are refunding it for the deposit. I don't know. However, it's an easy steal. If you chain it down, you don't have to worry about it. That's why a lot of houses you see will have fences and barbed wire. Is to keep people from easily walking into the yard and stealing something.
Yeah. So for the most part, the crime that we've had to deal with has been petty theft, crime of opportunity. You know, if you don't watch your bags, if you leave stuff unattended.
If you happen to be here and you're on public transportation, the bus, don't put your bag in the overhead bin because it's too easy for someone behind you to grab their bag or pretend they're grabbing their bag, grab your bag, and out they go with it. So you want to keep your eyes on your valuables.
Right.
Which brings us to disadvantage number 2, which is
the PuraVida Lifestyle.
Now, the PuraVida Lifestyle, how can that be a disadvantage? Well, if you're my personality, you're the type of person, get it and go, you know, everything is on time. However, it almost drove me crazy. But after being here for over 6 years, I'm learning to adapt.
The PuraVida mentality, I find that it's not, let's see how quickly we can help the customer.
No, you know, on that note, I've gone into the post office, just want to get my package, and the person in front of me, they're sitting there chit-chatting and talking and about the family and the kids, and I'm like, sometimes a day, you know, they're in no hurry.
It takes a lot of self-control because you don't want to come into this country and begin to criticize the people or cause disruption by, you know, saying, could you please hurry up, stop your conversation? No, you have to practice some patience.
Yeah. Right. I mean, you have to remember you are a guest in their country. The PuraVida Lifestyle, that culture, it's been that way always, which brings up, you know, what does PuraVida mean?
It means pure life.
Pure life. And
literal translation means pure life,
right.
But it means a lot of different things to the Costa Ricans.
It's used every day, thousands of times a day. It's PuraVida everything. You know, have a great day, PuraVida. Come on, stop, PuraVida. Everything is PuraVida. So it's very laid back, and we're in no hurry, and you know, so just relax and enjoy.
Right. It's ingrained in the society.
That's right. It's very much ingrained in the society.
Same as mañana.
Same as mañana, which is part of the PuraVida Lifestyle.
Translation of meaning tomorrow in English, but we find that mañana in Costa Rica means not today.
That's right.
It could mean tomorrow, the next day, next week, and if you're a person of punctuality, that can really get on your nerves. Somebody says, I'll be there mañana, so you're expecting them the very next day, and to them, they meant I'll go when I can go. And you know, it's when they remember, and you might have to call a few times. Yes.
So you have to remember that it is laid back. Everything takes a lot longer. But hey, that's the reason a lot of people come here, is to get out of the rat race.
Right.
So it might take you a little bit of time to adjust, but once you adjust, you know, okay, you can just really enjoy paradise, right?
Yes.
So that brings us to disadvantage number 3.
The import fees.
Wow, the import fees can be expensive. Okay, so keep in mind that when you're trying to buy things, obviously you're trying to buy things that are here in Costa Rica, but sometimes you just cannot find it. Right. Typically, if she goes shopping and I want a jar of peanut butter, well, guess what?
It's going to be double the cost that it is in the United States.
That's right. So if you want a name brand like Jiffy Peanut Butter, guess what? It's going to cost you a whole lot. There are a lot of things like that. Thanksgiving, we just want to have a traditional Thanksgiving meal, but a can of cranberry sauce in the United States, you might get 3 for $1 on special. Here, you're going to pay...
It was $6 a can of cranberry sauce.
$6 a can. Wow. So understand, anything that's being imported in is going to cost you a lot.
Right.
These lapel mics that I'm using today, good quality, $189. However, by the time I shipped them, which was $60 through DHL, then I had to pay another $120 because they got stuck in customs, and most things will being imported in. Well, this is an invoice that I got after paying for the custom and import fees for the lapel mics. The normal fees, as you could see right here, were 7,793 colones. That's approximately about $15, okay? And that's the usual fees, import fees. However, for whatever crazy reason, I think I just got the Gringo Pricing. I had to pay an extra 36,000 colones for professional services and 20,000 colones for storage. Highly unusual. I never have to pay that. that was an additional $105 that I had to pay to customs. So it gave me a total down here of approximately $120 or 68,473 colones in order to get my lapel mics out of customs. It can be very expensive, so it cost me almost double for these lapel mics by the time I paid for shipping, custom taxes, and all that.
Yes, and it's sometimes difficult to find quality in appliances or computers, you know, those type of things. And so you're thinking, okay, well, I'll just order it and have it shipped in. Well, you may want to second guess, you know,
may want to reconsider
that.
Although, yes, you can buy a new computer on Amazon and have it shipped in. However, it's going to get stuck in customs, and if it gets stuck in customs, then you might have to drive 2 or 3 hours to a customs location because they're not in every town, and then you'll have to claim it. You'll have to pay your taxes. So it is very, very expensive. So that brings up a very important point, that if you're going to buy a computer, don't think that you're going to come to Costa Rica and buy one. You bought a brand new computer. However, the problem you ran into was?
Well, it was in Spanish, for one thing, and the keyboard, you know, the letters were in different places from what I'm used to, and so that was very difficult. And even though we paid more money to have an English language put on it, it never did work right, even with that.
You know, I had a good Apple laptop, and I'd had it a couple of years. It went bad, and I says, well, no big deal. I want to buy the latest anyway. I had to go all the way to San Jose. Once I got there, well, they didn't have the latest. I ended up buying the exact same type of computer I had that had been sitting there for a couple of years, and it had a lot of problems. So bottom line, if you're going to buy anything, your iPhone, anything of quality, high-tech computers, cameras, you want to buy them before you come to Costa Rica, or when you go home, buy them, then bring them over so that you can buy quality.
The story of our Ninja blender is a perfect example of that. When we moved here, we had one, and we didn't bring it because I just thought, well, I'll just buy another one because it was heavy. You know, didn't want to take up room in the suitcase, pay for that to be shipped over. Well, when we got to Costa Rica, there's no such thing as a Ninja blender, and the quality of the blenders I found were, you know, we bought one, it just did not work like a Ninja. So the next time we went home, bought a Ninja and brought it back in our suitcase.
That's right. So you do have to keep in mind that a lot of the things that they have in Costa Rica is coming from China, but you have to understand, this is a third world country. That's not a bad thing. They've made a lot of improvements since we've been here. However, that does mean the majority of the people in Costa Rica are poor, and so they're buying stuff that comes from China because that's what they can afford. So it is going to be a challenge to find things that are quality. You can, but you may have to travel all the way to San Jose in order to do that.
Right, and I find to get good quality linens, good quality towels, and so forth, you have to go to the city, and you will pay probably double what you would pay in the U.S.
Yes. So it's important to understand that. Which brings us on to disadvantage number 4.
The internet.
Now, the internet is very important for me and for us because we work online. However, I think the majority of the people that come here want internet, and it's important to realize that while, yes, you can get internet in most places, especially with your telephone, most Costa Ricans don't have a computer. They don't have a need for a computer. It's not like America where everybody has a computer, but everyone has a cell phone, and so they've got cell phone coverage. They're doing their Facebook on their cell phone and their, data plan on their internet with their phone, okay? But in rural areas like where we're at today, even your cell phone coverage is not that great. And so if you're going to rely on your cell phone coverage to email, you could possibly do that. However, if you want to be able to FaceTime and you want to be able to make a Skype connection, you need to have reliable internet.
Right. If you need to have internet for work, which would mean you'd have to have it pretty much
consistent, reliable.
Right. You can't depend on the cell phone data plan,
right,
because it'll be in and out, and your customers or your boss may not understand why you can't talk to them at this moment, and maybe won't be able to till later this evening because the internet is too slow. Which reminds me, before moving into a house, when we first got here, we rented a home that when I called and asked the owner, do you have internet? Oh yes, we have internet. It's fast, good internet. Well, it's about perspective. To her, it was good, it was internet, and it was sufficient. She mostly just emailed. So you have to ask the right questions, more so the speed, the reliability, and you may just have to go to the place first and before making an agreement to rent and seeing for yourself.
Right, it's important, and the best thing to do is just download the app. It's speedtest.net on your phone. You go to the place, then you can hook up to their internet and you can see what the actual speed is. If you're thinking, well, okay, I'm going to work from home, in my experience, because I've been doing this for many, many, many years working online, I know that to get by with a business online, I need to have a minimum of 6 download with 3 upload, okay? And so if you do that, you can get by. In remote areas, you're not going to find good internet. It's very difficult. We're in a remote area, but in the remote area, you can find people that are entrepreneurs that understand telecommunications, understand the internet, and what they do is they put up a tower in town, they're buying internet from the country, and then they put up a tower in the mountains, and then what they're doing is shooting the internet from one tower to the other and then to your house, okay? That's going to be really expensive. We pay $105 a month to get 6 down and 3 up, and most of the time it's not 6 down and 3 up. It might be 5 and 1.5 up, and so it's not real reliable, but we can get by. But just so you know, in my opinion, I think there's 3 types of people. You're going to have people that love the beach, and if you're on the beach, guess what? You probably that's a touristy area, unless you're in a remote beach. Right. But for the most part, on the beach, you may not have a problem with the internet because a lot of people are there. You have mountain people like us. We love the mountains. We love the gorgeous scenery and the cool temperatures. However, there's a lot of places in the mountains. It's just not close to the city, so you're going to have a challenge with the internet.
You almost have to buy it from a reseller.
Right. You almost have to buy it from a reseller, an entrepreneur, because although you can get what's called Claro internet, it comes off your towers. You're not going to be able to work off of that. And in the evenings when everybody's home, wow, what a challenge, because then everybody's trying to access it, right, and it's very slow. And then the third type of person, in my opinion, are city people. I don't think that's most people, but there are some people that like to live in the city. And if you like to live in the city, most times you'll never have a problem with the internet, because in the city you can get dependable internet. And there's 2 or 3 good internet providers where you can get faster internet. So in the city, you might get 50 down, which is, really great in comparison. And And very rarely do you get anything above that. But anyway, just so you know, internet is a huge challenge.
Yeah, and they are making improvements even in the city. They're putting fiber optics.
They are now installing fiber optic all over the place, but that's going to take time. So yes, indeed, we've seen lots of improvements since we've been here,
yes,
right?
Lots.
So that brings us on to number 5, which in my opinion is probably the greatest disadvantage of living in Costa Rica, and that is
the Gringo pricing.
the Gringo pricing.
He hates it.
Maybe because, you know, I'll give the shirt off of my back to help someone, and for someone to take advantage of me and to take my hard-earned money, it just really hurts me to the core. So the Gringo pricing is a real thing, but I guess first let's define what is Gringo, okay? What is a Gringo?
Gringo, as I understand it, to the Ticos means anybody that is not from Costa Rica, who isn't a Costa Rican national.
Right.
If you're a foreigner of any type, Canadian, British, you know,
wherever
US.
you're from, if you're a foreigner, Costa Ricans will classify you as a gringo. Even though the true meaning of gringo comes from war times and it has to do with Americans, really it's important to understand that if you are not from Costa Rica, you're classified as a gringo. Okay.
And you're often viewed as having way too much money, and that's where the Gringo pricing comes in, because you know, there's a lot of poor people, and they feel, you know, they get an impression of us from watching television shows and so forth, and most, even the poorest people in the U.S. have more than the poor people, some of the poor people in Costa Rica. So what ends up being with the Gringo pricing has to do with services.
It's mostly services. So
and the experience that we've had has mostly been with mechanics because of the roads. It's rough on our vehicle, so we're often having to get repairs done.
Yeah. So what you have to understand, if you're going into the stores and anywhere where you see a price tag, you're probably not going to have to worry about that. However, you know, as she said, we had our vehicle fixed. It's important that when you go to a mechanic, make sure you get an estimate before you agree to have any work done, okay? And you're going to be pretty safe so that you get an idea. It doesn't mean you're not going to get the Gringo price, because if you don't know what it normally costs, and I'm going to actually do a video in detail about what to look out for when getting work done to your vehicle. However, you know, when we moved to this area, I needed some work done on my vehicle. I talked to the locals and I says, hey, who's a good mechanic? Who's someone I can trust? And they says, oh yeah, go see that guy down the street, blah, blah, blah. He's really honest. You can trust him. Well, I took their word for it. I went down there, told him, hey, look, I just need to get my clutch replaced. And I've had my clutch replaced a couple of times. I knew what it was going to cost me. When he got through fixing it, when I got the bill, he charged an astronomical amount for the labor, which was highly unusual, but it was too late. He'd already done the work. I had to pay it. When I showed the list and the price to my locals here, they said, yep, you got gringoed, okay? And so while he is probably honest to all of the Ticos, he saw a gringo and said, that's my chance to make some extra money quick, because gringos have too much money. So that's their thinking. And so, like Rebecca said, even some of the poor people in America have way more money than the poor people in Costa Rica. So just be careful of that and know that, hey, they will take advantage of you if you're not careful. So just be careful. And if you're careful, it's going to be fine.
Right. And it's not all people. And it's
not everybody.
You know, we've had mechanics do work, and they were fair. They charged us what they would have charged a Tico. So
the important point is that once you get here in Costa Rica, once you get to know the Ticos and you get to find some that are friendly and trustworthy, and I found out that if you talk to some other gringos and, hey, who does your mechanic work? You know, they've been here a while, they've established relationships with people they trust, and so that will help you to avoid the Gringo pricing.
Right. Pretty much trying to help you guys out to not learn from the School of Hard Knocks like we had to do.
That's right. So there's several things that really make a huge difference. But those are the top 5 things. We're going to talk about a few more other things, but we want to keep in mind, put your comments down there. Which one do you think would be your biggest disadvantage of living in Costa Rica? and type it in the comments and the questions below. But I want you to remind you, next week, tune in Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, because next week, what are we going to talk about, Rebecca?
3 things everyone must do if you own a vehicle in Costa Rica.
So whether you have an automobile or a motorcycle, there's 3 things you need to know about. So tune in, and we're going to make sure that we give you all the information that we know. We're going to answer questions, and we look forward to seeing you next Thursday. PuraVida.